welcome back to Prime Wealth. We're so glad you're joining us today.
Absolutely, it's great to have you here.
Today, we're diving into a topic that affects so many couples, joint budgeting, and how to avoid those frustrating money fights.
Yeah, money can be a real sticking point in relationships, can it?
For sure. It's often where couples clash the most, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Right, we'll discuss practical strategies to create a budget together, how to communicate openly about finances, and some tips to keep things harmonious.
Plus, we'll touch on setting financial goals as a team, which can really strengthen your partnership.
Exactly. Being on the same page financially can lead to a much healthier relationship overall.
So, whether you're newlyweds or you've been together for decades, there's something in this episode for everyone.
Let's get into it.
So, first things first, what does joint budgeting really mean, and why is it so important for couples? You know, Alex, when we talk about joint budgeting, it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's really about the emotional landscape of a relationship, especially for couples over 40.
Absolutely, Jordan. At this stage in life, many couples are starting to think about retirement, long-term care, and even how to manage their assets for their kids or grandkids. It's a lot of pressure.
Right. And with inflation hitting so many areas, like groceries, healthcare, and even travel, it can feel overwhelming. I read a statistic recently that said almost 50% of adults over 40 worry about not having enough saved for retirement. That's a huge number.
It really is. And those worries can lead to tension in relationships. Money is often cited as one of the top reasons couples argue. When one partner feels insecure about finances, it can breed resentment and misunderstandings.
Exactly. And sometimes it's not even about the money itself. It's about the values and priorities behind financial decisions. For example, one partner might prioritize saving for retirement, while the other wants to invest in experiences, like travel. Those differences can create friction if they're not addressed openly.
Yes, and that's where joint budgeting comes in. It's not just a practical tool. It's a way to align those values and priorities. When couples sit down together to create a budget, they're essentially having a conversation about what matters to them both.
I know a couple, let's call them Mark and Lisa. They both work full-time but have very different approaches to spending. Mark is more of a saver, while Lisa enjoys treating herself occasionally. When they started budgeting together, it revealed a lot about their underlying beliefs around money. They realized that Lisa's spending wasn't just frivolous. It was her way of enjoying life after years of hard work.
That's a great example. Through joint budgeting, they were able to find a middle ground. Maybe they set a specific amount for fun money each month, allowing Lisa to spend without guilt, while also satisfying Mark's need for savings.
Yeah, and that opens up communication. Instead of fighting about money, they're discussing their values and what they want their future to look like. But I think a lot of couples hesitate to do this because they fear it might lead to conflict.
True, and that's understandable. But avoiding the conversation can create even more tension. It's like letting a small leak in a boat turn into a flood. The sooner you address it, the better.
And for couples over 40, those leaks can be more dangerous given the retirement timeline. If they're not on the same page about budgeting, they could end up jeopardizing their long-term financial goals.
Exactly. Plus, with the unpredictability of the economy right now, having a solid budget can provide a sense of security. It can help couples navigate unexpected expenses, like medical bills or home repairs, without derailing their financial plans.
So, what are some real-life strategies couples can use when they sit down to budget together?
Well, first, I'd say start by having an open discussion about your financial goals. Ask questions like, what do we want our retirement to look like? Or how do we feel about our current savings? This is about laying the groundwork for understanding each other's perspectives.
That makes sense. And then what?
Next, gather all your financial information in one place: bank statements, bills, and any investment accounts. It's much easier to budget when you have a complete picture of your finances.
And I guess that's where some couples might hit a snag, right? They may not even know all the accounts each other has.
Exactly. Transparency is key here. When both partners know what they're working with, they can make informed decisions together.
So, once they have that, how do they actually create the budget?
Start by listing all sources of income and then all expenses, fixed like mortgage payments and variable like groceries. From there, you can see where adjustments can be made. It's essential to prioritize your expenses based on your shared goals.
And what about those unexpected costs that always seem to pop up?
Great point. It's wise to include a buffer for those kinds of expenses. Maybe set aside a small percentage of your income into an emergency fund each month. This can alleviate some of that stress when life throws a curveball.
And I guess having a little fun money in there, too, can help ease the tension.
Absolutely! Budgeting shouldn't feel like a punishment. It's about creating a structure that allows for both saving and enjoyment. You could even set aside a monthly date night budget to keep things fun.
That's such a good idea. So, in essence, joint budgeting is about more than just tracking income and expenses. It's about partnership and shared values.
Exactly. And it's a continuous conversation. As life changes, jobs, kids, aging parents, so will your budget. Regular check-ins are vital.
That way, you can adapt and make decisions based on where you both are in your lives.
Right, and it reinforces that you're in this together. You're not just managing money, you're building a future as a team.
So it seems like the emotional side of joint budgeting is just as important as the practical side.
Definitely. It's about creating a sense of security and partnership.
And understanding each other's perspectives can really strengthen a relationship.
Exactly. So now that we've discussed why joint budgeting is crucial for couples over 40, let's dive into some core strategies that can help couples get started on this journey.
So Alex, let's dive into some practical advice for couples looking to budget together. What's a solid first step for them?
Well, one of the most effective strategies is to start with a joint budgeting meeting. You want to set aside some time, maybe once a month, where both partners can sit down and discuss finances together, right?
That makes sense. So what should they cover in that meeting?
Good question. They should review their income, fixed expenses, and variable expenses. It's really about getting on the same page. Start with a simple spreadsheet, or even a budgeting app, that both can access.
A budgeting app. Can you recommend a few?
Sure. There are several out there like Mint, YNAB, or even EveryDollar. Those apps allow couples to see their financial situation in real time, which can be super helpful.
I imagine it also helps keep both partners accountable, right?
Exactly. Accountability is huge. When you both have visibility into the budget, it creates a shared responsibility, we're in this together kind of vibe.
So what about setting financial goals? How do couples incorporate that into their budgeting?
Definitely essential. It's helpful to set short-term and long-term financial goals. For example, short-term could be saving for a vacation, while long-term might be saving for retirement or a home.
And they should prioritize these goals together, right?
Yes, prioritizing helps focus their efforts. They might even rank their goals in terms of importance and timeline. This way, they can decide together what they want to tackle first.
So let's say they have a few goals in mind. How do they translate that into their budget?
Well, they can allocate a portion of their income to each goal. For instance, if they want to save for a vacation, they could set aside a specific amount each month. It's all about adjusting the budget to reflect those priorities.
What about those unexpected expenses that always seem to pop up?
The classic surprise expenses. That's why it's wise to have an emergency fund as part of the budget. Ideally, this fund should cover at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses.
Right, and having that cushion can really reduce stress when life throws a curveball.
Absolutely. And it's really important to discuss how much each partner feels comfortable contributing to that fund. A little transparency goes a long way.
Speaking of transparency, how do couples handle spending differences? Like if one partner likes to splurge a bit more?
That's a common situation. It's essential for both partners to have some discretionary spending within the budget. That way, each can spend a little on what makes them happy without guilt.
So it's about balance, huh? How do they figure out what that balance looks like?
They can start by discussing their spending habits and what each person enjoys. Maybe one partner enjoys dining out, while the other prefers saving for travel. They can allocate a specific amount for each category, based on those preferences.
It sounds like having those open conversations is key. But what if they hit a financial snag or disagreement?
If disagreements arise, it's crucial to focus on the why behind the spending. Instead of saying, "I can't believe you spent that," It's more productive to ask, what were you hoping to achieve with that purchase?
That shifts the conversation from blame to understanding.
Exactly. It's important to foster a collaborative mindset. They're a team after all.
So what about checking in on progress? Should they just wait until the next monthly meeting?
Not at all. Regular check-ins can be incredibly beneficial. Even a quick weekly chat can help keep both partners aligned and accountable.
And those small conversations can help spot any issues before they become big problems, right?
Right. It's all about maintaining that ongoing dialogue. Couples can share their thoughts on how they're feeling about the budget, any challenges they're facing, and celebrate wins together.
Celebrating wins is important. It keeps the motivation high.
Definitely. Even small victories can lead to positive reinforcement. It could be as simple as treating themselves to a nice dinner out for meeting their savings goal.
All right, so let's say they've got the budgeting system in place and they're having those meetings. What's next?
They should also consider setting up automatic transfers for savings goals. This way, money is automatically allocated to those goals before it even hits their spending accounts.
That's a great way to make sure they stick to their plan without even thinking about it.
Exactly. It's like paying themselves first. This could be especially effective for retirement savings or building that emergency fund.
And it minimizes temptation, right? If the money isn't in the checking account, they can't spend it.
Precisely. It creates a buffer between their spending and saving habits.
So what are some common pitfalls that couples should watch out for when starting this budgeting journey?
Well, one major pitfall is failing to communicate openly. If one partner feels left out of financial discussions, it can lead to resentment or misunderstandings.
That makes sense. What else should they be cautious about?
Another one is not being flexible. Life changes, and so should their budget. If something isn't working, they need to be willing to adjust rather than sticking rigidly to a plan.
And what about the emotional aspect? Money can be such a touchy subject.
Exactly. It's essential to approach these conversations with empathy. Recognizing each other's feelings about money can prevent a lot of conflict.
It sounds like a mix of strategy and emotional intelligence is key here.
Absolutely. Balancing the technical side of budgeting with the emotional aspects is crucial for long-term success.
So they've got their budgeting meetings, set goals, and are communicating openly. What's the final piece of advice you'd give them?
Keep it simple and stay consistent. A straightforward approach can make it easier to maintain their budgeting habits over time.
That's a great point, Alex. Simplicity can be so powerful. And now that we've laid out this core strategy, let's talk about those common pitfalls couples might face. So, Alex, let's dive into some of those common pitfalls that couples face when they're trying to budget together. I think a lot of people might not even realize they're making mistakes until it's too late, right?
Absolutely, Jordan. One of the biggest pitfalls is really a lack of communication. Couples often assume they know what the other is thinking or feeling about money, but that's not always the case.
Right, like they might have different ideas about spending priorities or saving goals. I've heard stories about couples who think they're on the same page, but it turns out they're miles apart.
Exactly. I had a couple come to me once. Let's call them Mark and Lisa. They had been married for several years and had never sat down to discuss their finances in detail. Mark believed in saving for big purchases, like a house, while Lisa was more focused on enjoying life now, even if it meant spending a little more each month.
So instead of having those discussions, they just kept going on with their lives?
Yes, and that led to some really tense moments. Mark would get frustrated when he saw Lisa buying things they hadn't budgeted for, while Lisa felt stifled by Mark's saving habits. It was a classic case of miscommunication, and it really highlighted how assumptions can lead to conflict.
That's a great example. It's so easy to just assume you're on the same page, but without those conversations, resentment can build up.
Right, and another common mistake is setting unrealistic budgets. Some couples might start off with a very tight budget, thinking they can stick to it without any hiccups. But life happens.
Like unexpected expenses or maybe a sudden desire to go out for a nice dinner?
Exactly. And when they inevitably overspend, it can lead to guilt and blame. I once worked with a couple who had a budget that didn't account for their 2 kids, extracurricular activities. Every month, they were going over budget, and it became this cycle of stress.
So they were constantly feeling like failures, when really their budget just wasn't realistic?
Yes! And instead of addressing the budget, they started avoiding conversations about money altogether. That's a dangerous path. It's important to have a flexible budget that allows for those unexpected expenses.
That makes a lot of sense. Flexibility seems key here. What about couples who don't really have a budget at all?
That can be another huge pitfall. Some couples think, oh, we'll just keep an eye on our spending. But without a budget, they can easily lose track of where their money is going.
I've heard people say they're just too busy to sit down and create one.
Exactly. But when you don't have a budget, it's like navigating without a map. You might get somewhere, but it's likely not where you want to be. I had one couple, Sarah and Tom, who never set a budget. They were comfortable financially, but they were shocked when they realized how much they were spending on eating out.
Wow. I can see how that could add up quickly.
Yes, they eventually discovered they were spending almost $1.200 a month on dining out. Once they tracked their expenses, they realized they could cut back and put that money toward their savings goals.
So tracking expenses might help avoid those surprises, huh?
Definitely. But you also have to be careful about what you track. Some couples start focusing too much on the small stuff, like coffee runs or a couple of extra snacks at the store, while ignoring the bigger expenses, like car payments or mortgage costs.
Right, it's important to see the big picture. What other signs should couples look out for that might indicate they're heading for trouble?
One big sign is if conversations about money start to feel tense, or if one partner constantly feels like they're being blamed. If arguments about finances become frequent, that's a red flag.
Yeah, it's almost like money is the elephant in the room, and nobody wants to talk about it.
Exactly. And sometimes one partner might withdraw from discussions altogether, thinking it'll keep the peace. But that usually just leads to more issues down the line.
So it's important to keep the lines of communication open, even when it's uncomfortable.
For sure. Another pitfall I see is when one partner takes control of the budget without involving the other. It can create a power imbalance, leading to feelings of resentment or helplessness.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a recipe for disaster.
Right. I worked with a couple where the husband took over all financial decisions because he thought he was better at it. The wife felt sidelined and, over time, became less engaged in their finances, which led to deeper issues.
Wow, I can imagine how that could spiral.
It really can. And that's why it's crucial for both partners to be involved. They should both feel like they have a say in their financial future.
So, what are some signs that they could look for to recognize when they need to recalibrate their approach?
If discussions about money become more about blame than solutions, that's a big one. Also, if one partner feels overwhelmed or financial tasks start getting neglected, those are indicators that something needs to change.
And it sounds like they need to find a way to re-engage with each other about their finances, right?
Exactly. They can start by setting regular money dates, just like a date night, but focused on finances. It helps create a safe space for both partners to express their thoughts and concerns without judgment.
That sounds like a great idea.
So those are some immediate steps you can take. Now let's bring everything together.
So now that we've talked about the importance of joint budgeting and how it can really help couples avoid those money fights.
Right. Let's get into some immediate steps couples can take to kickstart this process.
Yeah, I love that. Where do we start?
Well, first things first, it's essential to sit down together and have an open conversation about your finances. You want to create a safe space for both of you to share your thoughts and feelings about money.
That makes sense. It's all about communication, right?
Exactly. You might want to start with a simple question like, what are our financial goals as a couple? This could be anything from saving for a home, planning for retirement, or even just managing monthly expenses better.
I can see how understanding each other's goals would really help align your financial strategies.
Absolutely. Once you've identified your goals, the next step is to create a joint budget. You can start with a basic template or even use an app that allows both of you to input your income and expenses together.
Speaking of apps, do you have any recommendations?
Sure. Apps like Mint or YNAB, You Need a Budget, are popular choices. They help you track spending, categorize expenses, and set budgets for different areas. Plus, both of you can access them on your phones, which is super convenient.
That sounds really user-friendly. What if one partner is more tech-savvy than the other?
Good point. If one of you is more comfortable with technology, they can take the lead in setting up the app or spreadsheet. But it's important that both partners get involved in updating and reviewing it regularly. Maybe set a weekly or bi-weekly check-in to discuss your progress.
I love that idea. It keeps both partners accountable and engaged.
Exactly. And during those check-ins, it's a good opportunity to reassess your budget and make adjustments as needed. Life changes, and your budget should too.
Right. So what's another step couples can take?
Start small. If you're new to joint budgeting, try focusing on one category at a time. For example, maybe you start with groceries. Track your spending for a month, then sit down together and discuss how you can optimize that category.
That sounds manageable. It avoids overwhelming both partners.
Exactly. And as you get comfortable, you can expand to other categories like entertainment, savings, or even debt repayment.
Speaking of debt repayment, how should couples approach that when budgeting together?
Great question. Being transparent about debts is crucial. Make a list of all debts, including the amounts and interest rates. Then, prioritize them based on what works best for your situation. Whether it's the snowball method, paying off the smallest debts first, or the avalanche method, tackling the highest interest rates first, discuss what feels right for both of you.
And that way, you're both on the same page about tackling those debts together.
Exactly. It's a team effort. Plus, celebrating small victories, like paying off a credit card, can boost morale and strengthen your financial partnership.
I can see how celebrating those wins would motivate both partners to stick with it.
For sure. Another great tool is to create a financial vision board together. This can be a fun way to visualize your goals and keep them front and center.
Oh, I love that idea. It's creative and can really help keep you motivated.
Right? You can include pictures of things you want to achieve, like a dream vacation, a new home, or even retirement plans. Just seeing those visuals can remind you both of what you're working towards.
That sounds like a fun date night idea too.
Definitely. And it doesn't have to be all about the numbers. You can also discuss your values around money. For instance, what does financial security mean to each of you?
That's a deeper conversation, but so important. It helps to understand each other's perspectives.
Exactly. And speaking of understanding, consider setting some financial boundaries. Discuss how much each of you can spend individually without needing to consult the other.
That's a good balance. Enough freedom to spend, but still within the framework of your joint goals.
Precisely. And don't forget to check in on progress toward those goals regularly. If one of you feels that the budget isn't working, it's important to voice that without fear of conflict.
Right. It's all about keeping the lines of communication open.
And if you feel stuck, consider bringing in a financial advisor for a few sessions. Sometimes, having a neutral third party can help facilitate those tough conversations.
That's a great suggestion. So, to summarize those immediate steps.
Well, we're not summarizing just yet, but let's say that couples should focus on communication, using budgeting tools, starting small, and checking in regularly.
And don't forget about celebrating those wins. All of this can really set the stage for a healthier relationship with money together.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about the budget. It's about building a partnership that thrives in financial matters. So, those are some immediate steps you can take. Now let's bring everything together. So, as we wrap up our conversation about joint budgeting for couples, it's clear that communication is key.
Absolutely. And setting shared financial goals really helps to align both partners, doesn't it?
Right. And remember, keeping the budget flexible can make a big difference too. Life happens, and it's important to be adaptable.
Yes, and establishing regular money dates can really strengthen not just your financial partnership, but your relationship overall.
Definitely. Those money dates are a great way to keep the lines of communication open. It's about teamwork after all.
And don't forget the importance of respecting each other's individual spending habits. That balance is crucial for harmony.
Well said. When you approach budgeting as a joint effort, it can really enhance the trust and intimacy in your relationship.
It's all about building that long-term financial security together, right?
Exactly. You know, managing finances as a couple doesn't have to be stressful. It can actually be a fun and rewarding journey.
For sure. So if you're feeling inspired to start that budgeting conversation with your partner, go for it.
And remember, Every small step counts towards your financial freedom.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you know someone over 40 who could benefit from this advice, be sure to share it with them.
Next time, we'll dive into budgeting for pet owners. You know, vet bills, supplies, all the essentials for keeping our furry friends happy and healthy.
That's going to be a fun one.
Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.
Yes. See you soon.